Let's do this right now. So we've got in 2020, Joe Burrow, Tua, Herbert, Jordan Love, who we saw last night, and Jalen Hurts. These are your drafted quarterbacks in 2020, okay? Burrow went 1, Tua goes 5, Herbert goes 6, Jordan Love goes 26th, Hurts goes 53rd overall, okay? Mm-hmm. That's a really good quarterback draft. Yeah. Wouldn't you agree?
No doubt. It's not bad.
All right. Which one of those guys would you consider either upgrading from Brock Purdy or, would be in the Brock Purdy category? I would say Burrow, Tua, Herbert, Hurts are all guys that either, I would take either one of those quarterbacks. Yeah. Our current quarterback or any one of those, wouldn't you?
Yeah, no doubt.
You go to 2021, right, and I'm looking at some of these quarterbacks. Trevor Lawrence, I think a lot of people would still take him. Zach Wilson, nobody's taking him over Brock Purdy,
you
right?
Sure?
What?
You're not taking him over Brock Purdy?
I am not taking Zach Wilson over Brock Purdy. How about Trey Lance, huh?
Okay.
When does that crack come into play for you?
Poor Trey.
Why?
I watched the game back yesterday.
The hugs at half
graphics. Yeah, the hugs after the game. But just watching him at a couple times they panned over, and then I was looking at the Cowboys Instagram account. Just he had that puppy dog look where he's a sad puppy dog. And he's thinking, boy, I was out there in August, just a couple months ago. Not a month and a half ago, if that, 6 weeks ago. He's sitting there watching Brock steal his job and take this team to another level. He's watching the fan base get behind Brock Purdy. He was watching CMC, who, since he's arrived in San Francisco, the Niners' offensive averaged 30 points per game. He never really got to play with CMC. Never did, actually. Played with CMC. Didn't even take reps in training camp with CMC. And the guys just... I felt some type of way for him.
Felt bad for him?
I felt bad. I'm not saying that Brock Purdy doesn't deserve a job. No. I'm not saying we should have kept Trey Lance. On a human level, I'm like, boy, you're a number 3 overall pick. You were celebrated, and now you're already in Dallas backing up Dakota Prescott and Cooper Rush.
Watching your former teammates destroy you
42-10.
I mean, Bonte, you're talking to the guy who actually had empathy for Pablo Sandoval taking the money and being miserable. So, I get it. Right. Believe me, I do get it. Like, we pretend like these guys don't have aspirations at times, like their own personal aspirations. Mm-hmm. So, I'm just going through the last couple of drafts here, right? That draft, we stop on Lance at 3. Fields, nobody's taking Fields over Purdy.
Not yet, but you know what? Back-to-back weeks, Fields hasn't been as bad.
Fields hasn't had one game better than Brock Purdy.
He has. Last week was pretty good.
He has not had one game better than Purdy's best moments.
I don't know. I don't know about that.
Purdy's had 4 or 5 games that would be better than anything.
Justin Fields has had some good games. He has had some good games. Don't cap.
I think you're by yourself on that one.
All right. Well, I'll be by myself on that one.
Mac Jones, nobody's taking Mac Jones over Brock Purdy. Maybe Dan Orlovsky is, because I heard some wild things he was saying yesterday.
What was he saying?
That Mac Jones would do exactly what Brock Purdy was doing in this system, and I disagree.
That's kind of insane.
Kyle Trask, nobody's taking Kyle Trask. Let's go to 2022. We saw Kenny Pickett. Anybody taking Kenny Pickett over Brock Purdy?
Probably not.
Okay. How about Desmond Ridder, who was the 74th selection?
Hasn't lost at home yet.
How about Malik Willis, 86th overall?
Hasn't seen him yet.
Okay, Bailey Zappi, Sam Howell, Skylar Thompson, all the guys in Brock's class. Nobody. I mean, I'm just looking at the last 4 years of drafts. Here's the names that I would write down. Burrow, Hurts, Herbert, Tua, Lawrence, Brock. There's 5 guys. I'll take any one of those 5 guys. That's about it. Is there anybody I'm missing?
Jalen Hurts last 2 games. Or not Jalen Hurts. Justin Fields. 8 touchdowns, 1 interception.
I'm not taking Justin Fields over Brock Purdy.
I'm not saying I am either, but he's thrown for over 600 yards. He's averaging 9.7 yards a pass a tip. So all of a sudden he's getting a clean pocket. Doesn't have to run around. I wouldn't close. Just like Jordan Love, I wouldn't shut the door on Justin Fields quite yet. Not quite yet.
That's a different conversation than his highs aren't anywhere near.
He's had some highs.
Brock Purdy has had some highs. Unbelievable games. We're going down the Justin Fields rabbit hole.
I get it. You'd rather have Brock Purdy. I think Kyle Shanahan would rather.
I think
Brock
the whole
Purdy.
league would.
Well, Kyle Shanahan obviously would rather have Brock Purdy because he picked Trey Lance ahead of Justin Fields. And Justin Fields is a guy he's watched grow up as a quarterback. And all these quarterback camps, all the quarterback initiatives or whatever it was, him going to Georgia, Ohio State, Shanahan was always linked to Justin Fields. Always. And he even passed up on Justin Fields. So I think, You know, Shanahan's happy with that, but I wouldn't close the door on Justin Fields yet because that Bears organization, if we've learned anything this year, is a total dumpster fire.
We can agree on that.
Defensive-minded head coach that has no clue on what he's doing. You trade for DJ Moore to finally get him a weapon. You trade a second-round pick for Chase Claypool. You don't use Chase Claypool. You already flipped Chase Claypool
like a clown.
to Miami. But we'll see. He's a clown with talent.
Well, but he's done a lot of shenanigans on and off the field for that team, for the Bears. He's quit on plays. There's a lot of guys calling him out.
They are calling him out. But, boy, that's bad business for the organization. That's doing your franchise quarterback a disservice.
Well, no,
Not only that,
we agree there.
You let David Montgomery walk, and all of a sudden David Montgomery looks like the second coming of a freaking beast out there in Detroit. So I'm not going to close the book on Justin Fields. He's had some really good highs, but if you're asking me if I'm taking Purdy over him, yeah, I'll take Purdy over him right now.
I mean, I'm just looking at all these prominent players that have been drafted. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in 2020. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. I mean, there's like 20 guys, prominent guys that have played football, significant football. It's basically Brock and 4 or 5 guys.
Well, one thing I wanted to talk about today, because Brock is going to get all the flowers, and I get it. The quarterback's going to get all the headlines, even though this defense is flying around, even though you got Christian McCaffrey lead the league in rushing, even though you got all these wide receivers and these tight ends, and you got weapons galore. What about Kyle Shanahan? We have not talked enough about Kyle Shanahan and the job he's done and how he's grown as a head coach. I think I first saw the growth, and you guys could disagree with me all you want to. But the growth in Kyle Shanahan, I think for me, we've seen it over the last 5 years, 6 years, keeping the team together. You get off the slow starts in 2021 and 2022, and you got the rabid fan base. A lot of people saying, oh, boy, God, get him on the hot seat, get him out of here. He's a clown, blah, 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 blah.
That felt aggressive.
It was aggressive, but some people were saying fire himself. He should fire himself, and I was just like, what?
That was the most aggressive.
So anyway, which is fine. Hey, look,
everyone's entitled to their opinion.
I've been very critical of Shanahan. One thing I've not done is said the Niners should fire him. I've not said that once. Should he be on the hot seat? Should Jet York, put some heat on him a little bit? Sure, why not? I love a head coach who's got some heat on him. I'm gonna get the best out of him.
Yeah,
but the growth for me really came on display today after they traded Trey Lance away. I'm telling you, man, after that preseason game, there's a lot of NFL coaches I've seen step up to that podium. There's a lot of NBA coaches step up to that podium. There's a lot of managers in baseball who sit there and conduct their pressers in a dugout. The way he was open about everything that transpired with Trey Lance, and he said, I failed Trey. I feel very bad for Trey. I failed him. And he took accountability for that, along with John Lynch. And I said, wow, this guy's showing a human side. He's showing that he's a little vulnerable. And a lot of people ripped him for it. Oh, you're a coward. You didn't go to the media right after blah, blah, blah. And I was like, man, pipe down. Did the radio interview. He came back after the game Friday against the Chargers and explained everything that happened. And I said, okay, I got a head coach who's contrite. He's showing some vulnerability. I think he's growing a little bit. And now you look at him in the way he's coaching, I think he's aggressive. He trusts the quarterback. He trusts his players. He's calling good games. You can nitpick here and there
about
some
elite
things,
staff builder.
but he is in his bag right now. So, you know what? I give a lot of credit to Kyle Shanahan for not only the way he moved off of Jimmy, for seeing something that he didn't like in Jimmy, moving off of Trey, and saying, you know what, Brock may be our guy, and I'm going to stick by this.
It's interesting that you loop Jimmy back in, because I was thinking about removing Trey just from the equation. It's kind of just calmed everything down, just from the murmurs of the media, the fans that might be out there beating the drum for him, like in that game the other day, right? For example, they're smoking the Dallas Cowboys. You know what we didn't come on the air and talk about? What? Oh, those 6 handoffs from Trey Lance. And I don't even know if he'd be playing, but I'm just saying, hypothetically, why don't you get him in that game?
Right.
You've removed all of that. And I think one of the areas with Jimmy, it's like, if you didn't believe in him, maybe just removing him from the equation would have been the better thing to do.
I think
and so
year,
seeing that growth from Kyle, it didn't hit me as hard as the way it hit you as from him on a podium.
No, nobody.
But I think there's a lot of people that feel the way you feel.
Well, no, there's a lot of people. And, there was media members who called him a coward because he ducked off after practice, which I know exactly what happened. He did the radio interview. And then he went on about his day. It was like, I don't have to talk anymore. I'll talk to the press tomorrow. And everybody freaked out or whatnot. So, it's fine. There's a lot of people who we look to report things on the 49ers and they come out let me stop right there. But a lot of people are calling him a coward. A lot of people are calling him a coward.
Did you think that was fair?
No, that because I know they wouldn't say that in front of him. So I try not to say things that I wouldn't say in front of him.
Okay.
I just try. I've been working on that my entire career.
Yeah.
To call him a coward because he didn't speak to you because he didn't answer your questions. Well, he did after the final preseason game. And then some people still held a grudge, and that's when he had to clap back at certain media members and ask them some questions. Put them on a hot seat. So
we can debate the timeline or whatever. The point is he did eventually address it, which he's, obligated to do.
And he didn't have. No, he didn't. He doesn't have to explain why he traded Trey Lance.
No, I'm saying obligated to talk to the media after a game.
Yeah. But he wasn't obligated to explain what went down in that situation. He didn't have to explain how Trey Lance, his body language, when he was like, you know what, just go home, dude, take the day off.
It's interesting because it hits everyone different. But like for me, it was like, all right, whatever you say about Trey is kind of irrelevant. Like, are you going to have success with Purdy? And they're having wild success. Yeah. And so the whole Trey thing is like, to me, a complete afterthought.
It is an afterthought.
But I understand a lot of people feel the way you feel.
But the growth of Shanahan, I thought, boy, he took a major step forward.
I don't think you're alone.
He took a major. No, a lot of people think it was just PR BS, but that's fine. But he moved on from Trey.
Not a PR guy,
because think about that. Think about that. You had to move on from the number 3 overall pick, in which you guys traded heaven and earth for.
I mean,
for that pick, for that slot to go get a franchise quarterback, and you completely whiff on that. A lot of coaches get fired. A lot of coaches can't overcome that. A lot of general managers can't overcome that. But Shanahan and Lynch have, because they got a roster full of bullies.
I mean, Bonte, we're talking about Mac Jones. They stayed at 15, the Patriots. And he might end up blowing out the greatest coach that we've all ever seen.
Yeah, I know.
And it's not just because of Mac Jones. There's a variety of things, but like it's a big part of it, right? Quarterback play has lost them how many games?
Yeah, I mean, wide receivers, talent in the running back room.
Wouldn't you agree that
it is bad right now in the league?
The Brock conversation is definitely a part of how they've overcome it. But the way that they've built their roster is the most important. Like we talk about Mac Jones. I keep coming back to Belichick, man. That roster around them is so bad. It's so bad. And you look at those offensive weapons. We all play fantasy. Who the hell is picking up a Patriot player? Nobody, right? When I look at the roster the Niners have assembled, Brock Purdy's been amazing. Absolutely amazing. And part of why he's been amazing, not a big part, but a part of why they've got elite personnel.
But you know what?
So they've been able to overcome a lot of misses because they're hitting in the mid and late rounds.
You know, a lot of people with Brock Purdy said, man, how can you not be good? You brought up Orlovsky, and Mac Jones will be good with all these weapons. Maybe not. But you can't teach instincts.
Yeah.
You can't teach an it factor. You either got it or you don't. You either anticipate or you don't. You either know how to read a defense or you don't. The thing I got on Mac Jones and the whole draft combine up into that process, and I know a lot of our friends, we don't want Mac Jones, and part of me wanted Mac Jones just to see some of y'all suffer because you're spoiled brats. I'm sorry, probably too early for that. But no, Mac Jones, that whole process, I kept thinking, well, he comes off as such an immature kid. For coming from Alabama, for playing with all those weapons, for playing for Coach Saban, why does he come off like a guy who just doesn't really care and will do what he wants to do? Well, we're finding out in New England, he's not really a good teammate. He's coming away. He's the Grayson Allen of football.
Veterans are not happy with him.
And so for all the people who wanted Mac Jones, thank God they didn't draft Mac Jones.
I know.
Thank the heavens.
Well, I mean, even if they took a guy who was rawer, like more raw than what Mac Jones, was perceived to be, like look at someone like Jordan Love. I think Jordan Love would be better with the 49ers. Do I think he'd be anywhere near Brock Purdy? No, I don't. And I'm not ripping Jordan Love. I kind of like him as a prospect, but there's a difference between being a prospect who's raw, who needs a lot of work and a lot of reps, and being the refined player that Brock Purdy just sees the field. And I think that he would be good in a lot of systems.
Now, he may be. And I wonder, since Shanahan doesn't get the perception of being a quarterback developer, doesn't do well in developing quarterbacks, right? That's the knock on Shanahan.
It is.
How much credit do we give Brian Griese? in that quarterback room as a quarterback coach.
Oh, I think he gets a ton of credit. I think upgrading from Rich Gangarello might have been one of the great staff moves this organization has done.
Very underrated. I don't even think Scangarello's coaching right now, is he?
Well, he was
at Kentucky.
Yeah.
And Will Levis had his worst year at Kentucky under Scangarello.
With the draft scout people who were breaking down film did not like that offense.
They did not like that offense whatsoever.
Newsflash, nor did Joe Shasky.
Brian Greasy maybe deserves a lot more credit than what Shanahan is doing. But